Good afternoon, everyone. Before I officially call our case, let me just check in with my court reporter. Harriet, are you there and can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Thank you. I'm here.
Okay, great. Now calling proceeding number 23AL-0231G. This is a continued hearing on Black Hills Colorado Gas, Inc.'s advice letter number 32. We were scheduled for a hearing through decision number R23-0532-I. It is December 1st at 2:00 p.m. I am Melody Mirbaba, the administrative law judge who is assigned to hear this matter. As with all of our hearings, I just want to remind everybody that we are webcasting this hearing, and that would include the video and the audio. And we have a court reporter taking down everything that's being said. Why don't we go ahead and get started with entries of appearance? I'd like to start with Black Hills.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Emmanuel Koshin, Associate General Counsel representing Black Hills Colorado Gas.
Thank you. And for the UCA.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. It's Michelle Singer-Nelson here on behalf of the UCA.
Thank you. And for Colorado Public Utilities Commission trial staff.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Kevin Obb appearing on behalf of trial staff.
For Walmart.
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor. This is Jeff Flagey appearing for Walmart.
Thank you. All right, and for AM Gas Transfer Corp.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. It's Mark Valentine from Keys and Fox for AM Gas.
All right, thank you. So we finished the testimony when we met on Wednesday and carried over the hearing till today so that staff could have some additional time to try to correct the voluminous errors with many of its exhibits and attachments there too. I am hoping that we are now in a position where we can address all of that. So at this point, hopefully staff has uploaded everything that needs to be admitted into their box folder. Mr. Opp, I guess I just want to turn to you and see if you have any thoughts on how we ought to approach this. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry. Well, first off, I'd like to say thanks to Black Hills for their help, especially Ms. Hegler. She helped out quite a bit, so I really want to acknowledge that and thank Black Hills for their help on that. So beyond that, yeah, we went through and spent a lot of time fixing all the labeling, making sure everything was correct, making sure that the naming conventions were correct. I have actually gone through and I have looked at each one of the documents as they have been revised, and we have been in communication with Ms. Federico, and she actually did point out one thing to us, and we managed to fix that. But I think we're in good shape in terms of looking at everything and making sure everything is now done correctly. And we did do a check with Miss Federico, and the one she mentioned we fixed, and I didn't hear anything else. So I guess I could go through some of these things and talk about them one by one. I think that would take a while, but I want you to know I have reviewed every one, and most of them was the labeling and the heading and the naming conventions, as you mentioned. Those have been fixed, and there were a couple of times we got the highlighting correct to make sure that we made the proper confidentiality designations. And Black Hills, with their help with Ms. Hegler, have been arm in arm. They've looked at these things, and I've talked to Mr. Koshin. I don't want to, speak on his behalf, but in talking with Mr. Koshin, we don't think that any confidential or highly confidential information has been disclosed. But by doing it this way, I'm pretty sure there aren't any inadvertent disclosures.
So does that mean that some documents were just incorrectly identified as having confidential and highly confidential information?
Yeah, I think that's the case, but we never actually inadvertently disclosed things that actually did have highly confidential information that were labeled public.
Okay. Just so you know, you don't label them public. They,
I understand that. I understand that, and I don't believe everybody on my side understands that.
okay,
So
that was part of the problem.
I agree. I agree, and that misconception has been fixed.
Yeah. All right. Well, as much as I don't want to waste everybody's time spent on each individual exhibit, I feel like we need to at least start that process, see how things are looking, and then perhaps if everybody can agree that these exhibits are okay and I can check in with my legal assistant, then we can get everything admitted. But as a starting point, I have a little list that I created to try to help guide me on some things. But you know what I'm thinking? We'll go back to that if we don't get it all covered by going through what you have in box. So why don't we go ahead and get started by, let's start with the lowest exhibit number and then move our way up. And I think that you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it was hearing exhibit number 600, which was the lowest exhibit number. Is that right?
It is. Let me just go into our box. Okay. Yes. 600.
Okay, so what are you offering for hearing exhibit 600?
Well, I have hearing exhibit 600 HC, a highly confidential version of the answer testimony. Rev 1.
Sorry, I pulled up the public because I can't show the
Oh,
highly confidential version
okay.
on the screen. So
You're right.
if you want me to show it, let me know and I'll have to shut the webcast down and go into a confidential session.
Oh, well, no, that's not necessary. Well, then from that, we have hearing exhibit. We have a number of hearing exhibits, attachment.
Okay, well, let's look at the one that we have on the screen, hearing exhibit 600 Rev 1. Since you've just indicated this document includes highly confidential information, I would like, if Casey, if you can, just get the full first page on the screen so I can get a sense for whether we've got a proper notice on here. Okay. All right, let's jump to a couple of those pages that are supposed to have redactions. I just want to make sure they do actually have the redactions and or highlights. Well, this should be public, so everything should be redacted. There shouldn't be anything highlighted in this one. Okay, I think that covered. We just went through a couple of pages in the 80s and up to 100 that did have redactions. And I think that those are all the pages that were shown on the first page of this exhibit. Okay, so with that in mind, is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 600 Rev 1? Hearing exhibit 600 Rev 1 is admitted into evidence. I'm going to see if I can pull up on my own screen the highly confidential version of this. For some reason, I was having Box was not necessarily letting me log in. So I just need a second here to try this one more time.
And Judge, there's a confidential version too. So there's confidential and highly confidential.
I figured. Okay. Casey, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get logged in. I don't know what the problem is. I'm continuing to try. So I might, if I can't do it, ask you to look at those for me. Although I am having a little bit of progress. So this should be hopefully okay. Okay. I think we're going to be good. Let me just get into staff's folder and I'll take a look at those two and make a record. Huh. Casey, I am in Box
Mhm.
and yeah, even when we had the hearing, there was a folder that was called staff.
I had to, it'll be called O1 staff. It'll be at the top now.
Okay.
I relabel them during the hearing just so the ones that the parties are at the top instead of having to search through, keep scrolling through the hearing. So it'll be titled
Okay.
O1 staff.
I see it now. I had a moment of panic where I thought their entire folder had disappeared. So, all right, here we go. I'm in there. Let me just get into the hearing folder for this case. All right, I'm just opening up on my own screen. Hearing exhibit 600 HC Rev 1. So let me just take a look at that. Okay, I can confirm that hearing exhibit 600 HC Rev 1 includes both the confidential and the highly confidential information, that the exhibit is marked in such a way to make clear which information is designated confidential, which information is designated as highly confidential. Those are highlighted in different colors. So from what I can tell, this exhibit looks good. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 600 HC Rev 1? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 600 HC Rev 1 is admitted into evidence. All right, I am going to just take another look. I will see what the confidential version of this exhibit looks like. Okay. All right, I can confirm that hearing exhibit 600C Rev 1 has appropriately identified by highlighting what is confidential and has also redacted the highly confidential information. And the exhibit on the first page identifies each page on which such information exists. So from what I can tell, this exhibit also now looks good. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 600C Rev 1? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 600C Rev 1 is admitted into evidence. So that should get us through the actual answer testimony itself of hearing exhibit 600, because we now have a public, a confidential, and a highly confidential version of the record. So let's move on to the attachments for this exhibit. So I can see in staff's box folder, following attachments to hearing exhibit 600 are loaded. Attachment FDS-11, FDS-13, FDS-13HC, FDS-17, FDS-17C. And then I think there's also an FDS-5. So let's start with the lowest number, FDS-5.
Judge, sorry,
Yes.
there's also an executable 17C. Just wanted to let you know.
Oh,
And I'd also, just to alert you and Mr. Opp, FDS 5 and FDS 11 were on the spreadsheet. So I don't know if there's those were already admitted. So unless there's a change, just letting you know.
yeah, I don't want to admit more than one version of the exact same exhibit. I think it creates confusion and makes it difficult to know which one should be relied upon. In looking at the spreadsheet, I see that we have FDS 5 with an identified with the word like PDF right next to it, and then just an FDS 5. I'm guessing one of those is an executable and one of them is a PDF. So Mr. Opp, why do we have FDS 5 in your box? Was there a change? You're still muted. I don't know if you're trying to talk, but.
Sorry, I'm going in and checking my notes just to make sure I can answer the question correctly.
Well, I guess I can tell you when I pulled up the PDF, I think it's supposed to be the PDF. It's not even marked, the version that was admitted into evidence.
Right, that's the one. Yeah, we went and marked it. Literally, that was what I was about to say.
Yeah, and hold on, I've got too many exhibits open here. Let me just close out a couple. Okay, so is this document's original format an executable document?
Yes.
So the question is, do we have an executable of this in the record?
Do you not believe so?
I can
Oh.
verify. Let me double check, Judge.
Okay. Because I can tell you in looking at what was admitted yesterday, the document listed on the spreadsheet as hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS-5-PDF. That one does include the header that marks the document. But I'm going to tell you, it says page 1 of 31, and the same document that's in staff's box says that there are 35 pages.
Well, all I did was went back to make sure that we were getting the correct ones into your box and everything. And so I went back and looked at documents one by one. And so to me, I thought we needed to update this one. So I can't explain why one has page 1 of 30 and the other one has 1 of 35. All I can explain is the one that's in there right now is the correct version.
So the one in box is the correct version?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And Judge, just so you know, I checked the version of hearing exhibit attachment 600, or I'm sorry, hearing exhibit 600 attachment FDS-5. So the one that doesn't say PDF filed on 11/20 is an executable. It's not
Okay.
labeled as an executable, but it is an executable.
Okay. And does it have 35 pages?
Well,
No way to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be downloaded as a spreadsheet, so I won't really know the pages. The PDF version will be the one that's on the spreadsheet, so it'll have whatever
Okay.
pages that's reflected on the spreadsheet.
All right. I will, I guess, give staff the benefit of the doubt that the executable version is the correct version, and we will not make any adjustments to that. However, given that the version, the PDF version that staff uploaded today is different than the one that was admitted into evidence yesterday or Wednesday, and staff has told me on the record that the version being presented today is the correct version. What I think we need to do is admit the correct version, and then I haven't done this before where I've admitted a document and then say, now we're not admitting it, but that's pretty much what I'm going to do. We are not admitting the version on the spreadsheet that was filed on November 20th, 2023. I identified on the spreadsheet as hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS 5 PD-PDF. That is not admitted.
Sorry, Judge, the one from box is correct?
Yes, and we're gonna, I'll ask if there is any objections to admitting this, particularly since it's been changed, but I don't want to have competing versions that are not the same in the record. So the one on the spreadsheet, FDS 5-PDS, is not admitted. And now I'll ask if there's any objections to the admission into evidence. And I don't know if we pulled this up onto the screen, Miss Federico. Why don't we go ahead and open up from their box, FDS-5. Right. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 600 attachment FDS-5? All right, there being no objection, hearing exhibit 600 attachment FDS-5 is admitted into evidence. I need a moment to make a note of this. So I think you can understand why I have to open the documents and we have to look at them. I mean, this is an example that if I had just relied on the representations, I would have discovered later down the line that we had two different documents identified with the same exhibit number, both in the record. So unfortunately, I don't think there are shortcuts to how we're going to get this done today. So let's move on to hearing exhibit 600, Jesus, attachment FDS 11.
And Judge, just so you know, this is another one where that one is on the spreadsheet too.
Okay, so do we have any others that are related to hearing exhibit 600 that were already admitted into evidence?
The only remaining ones in the box folder are FDS 13 and FDS 17. Neither of those are on the spreadsheet.
Okay. All right, so why don't you go ahead, Ms. Federico, open this exhibit. Let's put it on the screen. I'm going to do a quick comparison. If it's the exact same document that was admitted into evidence, I'm going to have to turn back to Mr. Opp to find out whether you actually, if there's a change. And they really don't look, I'll just say they don't look any different. Yeah, from what I can see, what's in your box as FDS 11 is the exact same document that was admitted into evidence on Wednesday. So, Mr. Opp, is there a reason why that's in your box?
Your Honor, if I might chime in just for a moment, our office did assist in going through and fleshing out or filling out whatever we could. It might be helpful. Elaine Hegler is on. She's a paralegal with Black Hills, and she did a lot of the work. If you'd like, she might be able to provide some additional explanation, but I will leave that to you and Mr. Opp if that might or might not be helpful.
Mr. Opp, do you know why that was in your box?
No, I was relying on, I went, looked at it. I think Miss Hegler had mentioned something about it, so I went and trusted her. But I do think that Miss Hegler, she's went through a lot of these things and explained a lot of these things to us, but oftentimes I think coming directly from her might be helpful. I did review these things, just looking to make sure things were consistent with what they needed to be.
Okay, Ms. Hegler, I know you're not a lawyer, but do you mind chiming in if you might be able to shed light? I mean, if we can pass over this exhibit, it was just inadvertently uploaded, that's perfectly fine. I just don't want to miss something that you all are all trying to signal me to by putting that in box.
Yes, Your Honor. This is Elaine Hegler, paralegal with Black Hills. I'm not going to do my video camera if that's okay, because it messes up my computers at work here. So for example, on this one, the only reason I included it is I think the labeling of the heading and stuff was incorrect, and so I fixed the heading, the hearing exhibit 600 attachment FDS-11, and I didn't really have time to go look and see what had been on the spreadsheet, and I went through some emails that Casey had provided previously to staff to say what needed to be fixed and use that as my guideline. So there was no changes to this document other than I probably fixed the heading.
From what I can tell, the only change that was made in the heading was to add a dash between FDS and 11. Do you think that's the only change you made?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. All right. With that, I don't think it's necessary to admit another version of this. I think it might create some confusion, though I will say I prefer the dash. It makes it a lot easier to read, but we'll just leave what we have in the record as is just for simplicity's sake. So we're going to bypass what staff has uploaded as FDS 11. I think the next one is going to be FDS 13, and that's still to hearing exhibit 600.
And this one, it would really be the same thing. I think maybe, yeah, so one is a highly confidential version, one is the public version. So this is the public version that's been pulled up.
Okay.
Judge, this is one that was left off the spreadsheet, and there's a public, a confidential, and a confidential executable.
In the box folder?
In box, yes. This one was left off the spreadsheet entirely.
Yeah, I see that it's not on the spreadsheet. So let's deal with this one first. This is hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS 13. Any objection to the admission of this exhibit into evidence? All right, there being no objection, hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS-13 is admitted into evidence. Now I'm going to look at the confidential versions on my own computer screen, so we don't put those up. Is there a 13C, or is it just highly confidential?
There should be a 13HC. It's only highly confidential.
So there's only an HC, there's not a C.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'm looking at FDS HC.
Judge, I'm sorry, the executable, there's an HC. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at a different one. Never mind. Ms.
It's okay.
Tyler's correct. There's a lot of numbers.
Okay. I can see in this attachment that everything that's highly confidential has been appropriately highlighted, so that it's clear from looking at the document what is highly confidential. So with that, are there any objections to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS 13HC? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS-13HC is admitted in evidence. Is there an attachment FDS 14 in staff's box that I'm just not seeing? Because I know that that was not admitted. It's not on our spreadsheet.
There's not. No, there's no FDS 14
Okay.
in box.
Then that's not going to be admitted unless somebody can get it in there before we finish going through the rest. So we'll move on to hearing exhibit 600, attachment 17. I'm sorry, attachment FDS-17. Okay. So this document indicates that there's confidential information. So this would be essentially the public version of it. Before I admit the public version, I am wondering, do we have a confidential version in box?
Yes.
we do.
Yeah, and an executable of the confidential as well.
Okay, and I can see in looking at 17C, the confidential version, that the confidential information is highlighted. And like I mentioned before, the public version, it doesn't actually redact, but it appears that the majority, pretty much everything after page 2 would be redacted. So I'm okay with this version. So with that, are there any objections to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS 17 and attachment FDS 17C? Okay, there being no objection, hearing exhibit 600, attachment FDS 17 and attachment FDS 17C are admitted into evidence.
Judge, you're including the executable in that, correct?
I don't know if the executable is identified in box any differently than what I've just identified. So I was just actually going to go back in there and see.
Yes, it's titled 600 executable attachment FDS 17C, and it's a Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, I see that. It's still not titled correctly. but it's at least close enough, I think. But let me just take a quick look at that. And I'm going to describe that exactly how it's titled so there's not confusion in the record. Okay. All right. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 600, executable attachment FDS 17C? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 600, executable attachment FDS-17C is admitted into evidence.
So Your Honor, this is Elaine Hegler. I just emailed to Kevin and his paralegal FDS-14 so that they can upload that into the box.
Okay, we could go back to that, but I am in looking at what we've just gone through and what was admitted during the hearing. Other than FDS 14, I think we've covered everything that was supposed to be attached to hearing exhibit 600. Mr. Opp, do you think we've covered everything? Do we have all the attachments?
Yeah, so that caveat, other than FDS-14,
Okay.
which we're going to load into box.
And you can just let me know when that's done and we'll go back to it. All right, so let's move on to hearing exhibit 601. All right, so in box, staff has uploaded a number of attachments. So I'll start with the lowest number. Hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-6, if we can get that put up on the screen. All right, so it looks like we admitted into evidence the executable version of this attachment, and this should just be the PDF version of the same document. Is that, Casey, am I understanding that correctly?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And I just did a quick comparison, and I can say that the version admitted yesterday as Wednesday as the executable is the same, at least looks the same as what we have up here on the screen. So is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-6? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-6 is admitted into evidence. Let's move on to hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-7. So I think we've got the same situation with this as we had with the last one, that the executable version was admitted. And so this should just be the PDF version of the same document. So just having opened up the version admitted, the executable version, they appear to be the same document. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 601 NTG-7? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 601 NTG-7 is admitted into evidence. Let's move on to attachment NTG-8 to hearing exhibit 601. I think we've got a similar situation as with the other two, where we had the executable version of this admitted into evidence through the spreadsheet during our hearing. At a quick glance, they appear to be the same document as was on our screen, which would be the PDF version of the same attachment. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-8? There be no objection. Hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-8 is admitted into evidence. Let's move on to hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-9. Again, this is the same scenario we had with the last few attachments where we admitted an executable version and we needed the PDF version. Looking at both such documents, it appears they are the same document. This being the version on the screen being the PDF version, and that's the version we're looking at to admit. So with that, is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-9? There being no objection, attachment NTG-9 to hearing exhibit 601 is admitted into evidence. Let's move on to attachment NTG. Thought that there was an NTG-10. Yes, so there's two. Let me just. There's two attachments, NTG-10. I think one looks like an executable, and probably one is a PDF. Let's start with the PDF. Okay. It looks like the same document that was admitted during our hearing, but the one that was admitted during the hearing was executable. It's just one page long. Any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-10? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-10 is admitted into evidence. So there is an additional executable of the same attachment in box.
Sorry, Judge. I was going to say there's actually an executable of 6, 7, 8, and 9 as well.
Okay. So since we've admitted the executables already, I don't want to admit them again. Is there any reason why we would need to admit these again and remove the other ones for the record, Mr. Opp?
No, Your Honor, I was just like the one with the dash. There might have been some minor changes, and so maybe I went overboard on that, but not on these ones.
Okay, so we're not going to admit the executable versions of any of those attachments that are in box, as they have already been admitted into evidence. I think the next one in line is hearing exhibit 601, attachment NTG-14. Okay, so this looks like a public version of this attachment. And we admitted a public version, I'm sorry, a confidential version, and that would be Hearing Exhibit 601, attachment NTG-14C executable. That's how it's described. That was admitted into evidence during our hearing. Right, any objection to the admission into evidence? Hearing Exhibit 601, attachment NTG-14. There being no objection, hearing Exhibit 600, attachment NTG-14 is admitted into evidence. So then we also have hearing Exhibit 601, attachment NTG-14C, which appears to simply be a PDF version of attachment NTG-14C, which we already have the executable version in the record, but we're supposed to have both. So is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing Exhibit 601, attachment NTG-14C, the PDF version of the same exhibit? There being no objection, hearing Exhibit 601, attachment NTG-14C is admitted into evidence.
And Judge, there is a 14C executable in box. That I just wanted to verify that that is a duplicate of the one on the spreadsheet and not anything different.
As far as I know, I mean, I expect staff to tell me if it's not a duplicate and something different.
Any changes we made were, like I said, on the FDS 11 or FDS-11. So, I mean, none of the substance of the information has changed. So I was trying to do everything by the book, but I don't think we need to go there and, reinvent the wheel. So I apologize for that, but no, we don't need to, any changes. It's not, we don't need to admit what's in box right now. Put it like that.
Okay. So let's move on to attachment or hearing Exhibit 601, attachment NTG-18. We admitted the executable version of this during the hearing. So this should just be the same thing that we admitted, but in PDF form. It looks to be the same to me and doing a very, very quick review. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing Exhibit 601 attachment NTG-18? There being no objection, hearing Exhibit 601, attachment NTG-18 is admitted into evidence. Okay, Mr. Opp, have we covered all the exhibits and attachments related to hearing Exhibit 601? We're ready to move on to 602.
We have, and we've also uploaded FDS-14.
Well, let's see if we can deal with that. That would be hearing Exhibit 600, attachment FDS-14, and I am looking for that. All right, I see it. Thank you, Casey. All right, this looks to be marked correctly. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing Exhibit 600, attachment FDS-14? There being no objection, hearing Exhibit 600, attachment FDS-14 is admitted into evidence.
Judge, I'm sorry, one more question.
Sure.
I believe that FDS 14 had a confidential designation as well. I only see a public one in Box. So I was just verifying that there isn't a confidential version that we're waiting for, or that they think they've uploaded, but I don't see.
Well, I
This is
also-
Elaine Hegler. Sorry, Judge.
I was just going to say, what we have as 14 is not redacted.
And it was in Ms. Segala's testimony, it was inaccurately listed as confidential, and it is not confidential.
Okay. Well,
And that
that's
revision
important.
was reflected on the cover page of the answer testimony confidential, notice of confidentiality.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies matters. Casey, thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it. All right, let's look at hearing exhibit. We'll move on to hearing exhibit 602. See what you have in your box. I wish there was a way to do this quicker. If anybody has any ideas, I'm happy to hear, but
So Your Honor, this is Elaine Hegler again. So for the hearing exhibit 602 attachments that are there, these are simply the rendered PDFs of the executables that were filed.
And Judge, I'm sorry. This is one where I think almost all of them are in Box or on the spreadsheet. LR 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 12, and 12. So 2 through 12 are all on the spreadsheet listed as executable and PDF. There may have been one that I told them was damaged and they needed to refile. I don't remember which one that was, but I thought I would have hit it if that was the case. But LRL 2 through 12, there is a PDF and an executable version on the spreadsheet, and there are versions in Box.
okay. And I mean, this is sort of one of those things that, we basically just tried to minimize the number of issues that we would have to deal with by accepting the fact that many of these were not electronically titled correctly, because they're all supposed to say the full number. In other words, hearing exhibit, not just exhibit, hearing exhibit number, the word attachment, and then the full attachment citation. And that didn't happen with a lot of these. So that might be, I'm assuming, the reason why they were uploaded, because I can see that they're now correctly electronically saved. But since we've already admitted them as is, and I think that these were physically marked okay, which is why we allowed that. I don't want to double admit and have to go back and get rid of the ones we already have in the record. So I don't see any reason to admit hearing exhibits 602 attachments LRL-2 through 12. But I will ask Mr. Opp if you agree with that.
I agree with that. I also agree with your description of what the changes were, but it was nothing. I guess erring on the side of caution. I apologize for making more issues, but I was just wanting to make sure everything was right.
Well, I mean, I really wanted you guys to do a comparison for what's on the spreadsheet so that we wouldn't be duplicating efforts we've already gone through, but what's done is done. Let's just move on. So I think, and just looking at the attachments to hearing exhibit 602, what do we have left?
I believe the only one left is 14. 14 may have been the one that I said was damaged, but I honestly can't remember. So I'll pull up 14 and we can take a look.
So
LRL 14, sorry.
Yeah. Hearing exhibit 602 attachment LRL 14 was admitted into evidence from the spreadsheet. It's 87 pages long, at least that version. I'm sorry, 80. I don't know if I said 87, 89 pages. Both, and looking at LRL-14, I mean, I don't have any problem opening it, so I don't know that it's corrupted. They look like the same document. Do we know why we have this in box? Does this need to be admitted because it's already in the record?
Sorry, I said no and I was on mute.
Okay, so then we are skipping that one too, LRL-14. Now, is that all the exhibits or the attachments to hearing exhibit 602? Have we covered all of those?
Yes.
I don't believe that there were attachments to hearing exhibit 603, and I don't see anything in box related to that. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
There is not.
Okay, great. So let's move on to hearing exhibit 604. And what we have admitted for hearing exhibit 604 thus far are 4 attachments. Those would be attachments AOA 1C through 4C. So that's all we have. So why don't we start with, is the actual testimony in box? There it is. So let's start with just hearing exhibit 604, which is just the testimony. If you can get that opened up on the screen for us, Casey. You already do. All right, is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604 is admitted into evidence. So the hearing exhibit 604 says on page 3 that there are 6 attachments to it. So I would expect to see at least that many in box. All right, so let's start with hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA1. We did admit the confidential version of this. Well, I can see that it's redacted, but there's nothing on here that would indicate why it's redacted, what's redacted, the nature of the information, which frankly, I think a lot of the parties failed to do. So I'm not going to require, hold only staff accountable to that. But I don't think really any party gave even a synopsis or any sort of peek into why the information is confidential, which I don't believe is compliant with our rules. But at this point, like I said, I don't think anybody really did that. So with that, is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604 attachment AOA-1? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604 attachment AOA-1 is admitted into evidence. I don't see any reason to open up 1C unless Mr. Opp, you tell me it's different than what was already admitted into evidence.
Judge, I'm verifying the ones that were admitted already may have been, I'm just checking in the raw document access. Some of them might have been executables and just not labeled as such. I'm verifying quickly before I confirm that. No, they were PDFs, so I'm not sure why they're in box beyond that.
Okay. Then let's look at hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-2. This should be the public version of the same exhibit that was admitted into evidence earlier this week. Do you mind minimizing this so that we can see the full screen? So this, as you can see, does not have the caption. It doesn't look anything like the confidential version, which has the caption and information that frankly is described differently than what we have here in the public version. Here in the public version, it says that these are legal invoices that are redacted. Confidential version says that what's confidential is master consulting agreement.
So Your Honor, on these attachments for hearing exhibit 604, I think a number of them, the ones that were maybe admitted, had the wrong attachment numbers on them. And so I think that's why I did both a public and a confidential version of these attachments that are in the box for staff. But this labeling that are on these documents in box match the answer testimony for staff witness 604.
Well, Mr. Opp, what we admitted into evidence as attachment AOA-2C, as I just described, says that the confidential information is something different than what is described here in the public version that we've got up on the screen. I need you to help me out here. I can't fix everything.
Well, I mean, I remember, and maybe I heard this wrong, go through everything, not just things that you identified. So that's what I tried to do. These are more accurate representations, but do they move the needle? No, but I was trying to make sure I got everything to be specifically more accurate. So I apologize. I was trying to go over that, but if things have already been admitted, I don't want to admit them again. But I guess I misheard you when I told you, when I thought I heard you say, look at everything, not that you just identified. But now that we're in this process, no, I don't want to. I want to streamline this and not identify the things. And I believe the descriptions were sufficient. Originally, we were making these a little more specific.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you, I mean, you should know your own exhibits better than I do, but I know your exhibits better than you do at this point. The confidential version of this document, AOA-2C, I just looked at it. It is a confidential master consulting agreement. The description on what you've provided me as a public document describes it as legal invoices. It's just not the same thing. If you want to put together, I can have you put together a proper public version of hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-2C, then we can, or 2, then we can look at that. But what's on the screen here, I'm not admitting that. I don't know what this is. It's not coming in.
Okay.
Your Honor, the confidential version that's in box for hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-2C, matches this public version. And the labeling on these attachments and what they are, what's in box matches what's actually in testimony.
So are you trying to tell me that what was admitted into evidence is wrong?
I believe so for the attachments for 604. Yes, Your Honor. They just were labeled improperly and they didn't match how they were labeled in testimony. So the documents themselves were correct, just not the right attachment numbers.
I mean, when I pull up the document that was admitted, it's a completely different document. So is the admitted document that was marked and admitted into evidence as AOA-2C, should that be marked and identified as a completely different attachment? That question is for you, Mr. Opp.
I know, and at this point, I'm having a hard time following the things that have gone back and forth. My understanding is that, yes, the one that we have put in box is the better description.
It's not about the description. They're completely different documents. I just need to know.
Yes, they were, yes, we need to change those out and admit the ones that are in box.
Judge, I think maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe the easiest way to do it would be to, I guess, unadmit all of 604 that's on the spreadsheet and just go everything based off box, and then we can open each one that way.
I'm okay with that. Mr. Opp, do you think that that's going to be a more efficient way of dealing with the confusion? Okay.
Yeah, we did that before. We did that before, and I think we need to do it again with this one.
So then, Judge, we may need to look at AOA 1C.
Yeah, I agree.
Well.
Okay, so for starters, we are no longer admitting hearing exhibit 604 attachments AOA 1C, 2C, 3C, and 4C as listed on the hearing exhibit spreadsheet. So those were not admitted, and we're just going to start over with the versions of these documents that are in box. So let's go back to, I think we already did AOA 1. Let's go back to AOA 1C. And I'll open that up on my screen so we don't have to go into a confidential session. Okay, it appears that, hold on, let me just double check before I say that. All right, hearing exhibit 604 attachment AOA 1C does appear to be the same document as hearing exhibit 604 attachment AOA 1. This one's just the confidential version. It is marked correctly and has highlighted the confidential information. So I ask, is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604 attachment AOA 1C? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604 attachment AOA 1C is admitted into evidence. So we've already gone through attachment AOA 2, so let's look at attachment AOA 2C. And obviously, Casey, you don't have to pull that up on the screen. I will look at that one myself and do a quick comparison.
I'm sorry, did you say you did admit AOA 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I can tell you this AOA 2C are the legal invoices, which does align with the description in AOA 2. You know, actually, I think I did not admit it because we had all that confusion and it did not appear to be even the same document of 2C. So I think I should go back to that. So starting with 2, hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-2, which is the public version. We've already reviewed that. Is there any objection to the admission and evidence of that exhibit? All right, there being no objection, hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-2 is admitted into evidence. And then I'll have the same question. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-2C? There being no objection, such exhibit is admitted into evidence. So let's open up hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-3, which would be a public version of 3C. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-3? Hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-3 is admitted into evidence. Now I will look at the confidential version of this, which would be attachment AOA-3C. Let's not, again, we're not putting that on the screen, so we don't have to go in a confidential session. Okay, so I can see that there's quite a bit of, there's some information that's highlighted, which I'm going to assume indicates. Let me ask you, Mr. Hop, Mr. Opp, is the entire, everything in the attachment confidential?
I think he's on mute again.
Yeah, he don't look like he's trying to talk though.
No, I said yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, I was still looking at the document. Okay. All right, well, the reason I asked is that some pages of this document are yellow, which initially looked to me like you were trying to highlight, but that just might, as I scrolled through, I'm thinking that's just what the document is. It's just yellow
Yes, the
background. Okay.
document had, yes, just the yellow background. That's how I got it. So
Right.
that's how it works.
Okay, so the whole thing is confidential then.
Yeah.
All right, is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-3C? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-3C is admitted into evidence. Let's move on to attachment AOA-4. All right. I'll just say I've pulled up to look at for myself, the confidential version of this, which is attachment AOA-4C. And I'll say the description in the public version matches what I'm seeing in the confidential version. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-4? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-4 is admitted into evidence. And now let's turn to 4C. I have looked at that as well. I think I'm going to have to. There it is. Mr. Opp, most of this document is yellow, highlight bright yellow, and then there are some lines that are not highlighted. Are we supposed to interpret the not highlighted part is not?
No, that's just how it came to me, with some of being highlighted and some not. So I don't think there's an interpretation to be gained from that.
Okay, so the whole thing is confidential.
Yes.
All right, any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-4C? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-4C is admitted into evidence. right, let's move on to hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA-5. And this would be the public version of AOA-5C. Okay, so I've just looked at 5C, since we couldn't put that up on the screen. That is the document that is described in AOA 5, the public version, which is a master consulting agreement. So I think this is one of the attachments that was marked incorrectly. I think this had been marked and admitted as 2C. So I think we've got that cleared up now in the record. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, attachments AOA 5 and attachments AOA 5C? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604, attachments AOA 5 and 5C are admitted into evidence. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, we just have 6 and 6C left for hearing exhibit 604. So let's open up, I have Casey, you open up 6 on the screen, and I'm going to look at 6C.
Yes, I just wanted to let you know that there is an executable attachment AOA 1C also. I think we missed it in our going through.
I have it on my list, but we can go back to it. I have it on my list as us having addressed it, but I'm happy to double check that. Let's deal with this one first.
Sure.
Okay. So I have reviewed hearing exhibit 604, attachment AOA 6, and hearing exhibit 604-6C, AOA 6C. The description on the public version, which is AOA 6, matches what is actually the confidential version of the document. And they all appear to be marked correctly. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, attachments AOA 6 and 6C? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604, attachments AOA 6 and 6C are admitted into evidence. You can go back through the exercise on AOA 1 and 1C as well.
It's that we did admit 1C. It just looks like there's an executable version of 1C in box.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. I don't have that one on the list. Let's see. So did we? Okay. All right. Let me see if I can find that. Okay. So based on my quick review, it does look like hearing exhibit 604, and I want to describe it exactly how it's titled, executable attachment AOA 1C, does appear to be the executable version of hearing exhibit 601, attachment AOA 1C. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 604, executable attachment AOA 1C? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 604, executable attachment AOA 1C is admitted into evidence. Casey, do you think we've covered all the attachments to hearing exhibit 604?
I believe so, as far as
Mr.
I can
Opp?
tell anyway.
Yeah, as what I can see from Box, Mr. Opp, do you think we've captured it all?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Great. Let's move on to hearing exhibit 605. And 605 is answer testimony. Mr. Opp, I'm seeing that there's a 605C as well. So, all right, I'm sorry, I didn't see the bottom of the screen. Casey, let's scroll to pages 14 and 15. I just want to confirm that confidential information was redacted. Okay, that looks to be good to go. Is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 605? There being no objection, hearing exhibit 605 is admitted into evidence. I am going to pull up 605C on my screen. Okay, so in hearing exhibit 605C, the highlighted information as confidential appears to be two tables on pages 14 and 15. The tables themselves aren't highlighted, but I would read the shading to indicate that the entire tables are confidential. Mr. Opp, does that sound right to you?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Yeah. It's probably difficult to highlight an actual table, but I think that it's
Right.
pretty clear that that's what's
Right.
intended here. Okay. So with that, is there any objection to the admission into evidence of hearing exhibit 605C? All right, there being no objection, hearing exhibit 605C is admitted into evidence. All right, so in box, it looks like we've got, for attachments to hearing exhibit 605, we've got attachments ETO-1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6.
And Judge, I did want to flag for you and Mr. Opp. Those are on the spreadsheet. There are a PDF and I think an executable and I think a PDF of ETO 5. And then ETO 6, there's just one marked ETO 6 and one marked ETO 6-PDF.
So is the one that's just ETO 6 supposed to be an executable?
Let me verify quickly.
As you know, when we create the spreadsheets, it doesn't link you to the executable. You have to go and look,
Right.
so I can't tell.
It was the ETO 6 that was filed on 11/20 is an executable. It's not labeled as such, but the raw document file is a spreadsheet.
Okay. Mr. Opp, do we have a similar issue with these attachments as we just went through with one of the other attachments? Is there a reason we should be admitting these ones in box over what's already been admitted?
No, Your Honor, there were nothing substantive.
Your Honor, this is Elaine Hegler. The reason that I redid the attachments for Miss O'Neill is they had an incorrect proceeding number on them. And so, again, it was just fixing the header. The documents themselves were not changed at all.
Judge, I'm opening the spreadsheet versions. I think that issue I remember that being an issue originally, but given that the filing date of these is 11/20, I think the ones on the spreadsheet are correct. I'm checking right now though.
Well, I'll just say I've got the one from the very first one, ETO1, pulled up on the screen, and it's got the correct proceeding number on it. So I can also just look at the others. All right, I just went through the ones that were admitted into evidence, and I'm referring to attachments ETO1 through 6 to hearing exhibit 605. They all do have the correct proceeding number. They look like they're correctly marked, and they were admitted into evidence. So unless there is some other reason why we should go through each of these that are in box and admit these instead, I'm inclined to just not touch the ones that are in box and leave the record as is for those exhibits.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run through what we've admitted today, what we've done, and then I think we might have covered all the outstanding exhibits, but I want to run through it and then see if there's anything that we've missed. So to starters, let's see. Hearing exhibit 600, attachment FTS-5-PDF that was offered and admitted during the hearing is not admitted. And hearing exhibit 604, attachments AOA 1C through 4C that were offered and admitted through the hearing exhibit spreadsheet during the hearing, none of those are admitted either. We have changed their designation. What we've admitted today are hearing exhibit 600 Rev 1, hearing exhibit 600 HC Rev 1, hearing exhibit 600C Rev 1, hearing exhibit 600 attachment FDS-5, which replaces the one that was no longer admitted. Hearing exhibit 600 attachment FDS-13 and 13HC, FDS-17 and 17C. Hearing exhibit 600 executable attachment FDS-17C. Hearing exhibit 601 attachments NTG-6 through 10. Hearing exhibit 601 attachment NTG-14 and 14C. Hearing exhibit 601 attachment NTG-18. And this is a little bit out of order because we took it out of order. Hearing exhibit 600 attachment FDS-14. Hearing exhibit 604. Hearing exhibit 604 attachments AOA-1 1, 1C, 2, 2C, 3, 3C, 4, 4C, 5, 5C, 6, 6C. And hearing exhibit 604, executable attachment AOA-1C. We've also admitted hearing exhibit 605 and 605C. And that is it. So to my question to staff and also to Casey and anybody else who wants to chime in, have we covered all the exhibits?
I believe so.
Thank you.
Your list matches my list, Judge, so I think we're on the same page.
Okay, great. Does any party have anything you'd like to raise relating to these exhibits? All right, I'm going to take that silence to mean that everybody is on board and okay with what we've done here today, of course, and that we've covered all the exhibits that the parties wish to be admitted into evidence. So before we adjourn our hearing, I just will throw it out there to see if there's anything else we need to address. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate what I would say is probably a gargantuan effort to get these exhibits ready for us to go through them today. I know it took a lot of time. I appreciate everybody's patience. I think this will make for a better record for everybody. And I am pretty protective of my record if you have not figured that out already. So I really, really hope we never see these kinds of issues again. And Mr. Opp, if I do see you again, I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, well, you should, and it won't.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So thank you all for appearing. I appreciate all of your efforts and your time. And if there's anything else, I see Ms. Singer Nelson has unmuted herself. Is there anything that we need to raise?
No, Your Honor, I was just going to say thank you and have a great weekend when you were done.
Same to all of you. All right. Our recess, our hearing will be adjourned. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.